I want to dive into all of what you guys are doing as kind of a collective right now, but I know many of you from, I don't know, the last decade plus of different things. I've interviewed Emily before on the podcast years ago. I meant to look back and see what episode that was. We'll link it in the show notes, but tell me a little bit about what's happened from then to now for you.
Yeah, so I guess we've moved farms, still have sheep, still have many plants, and then we also grow a lot of vegetables. So yeah.
Are you on Bainbridge still?
No, we're south of Seattle in the Puyallup area.
Okay,
so.
cool. Yeah, last time I talked to you, you were doing that.
Yeah,
cool.
So
that's great. And then let's pass it to Sarah. Sarah and I are Instagram friends from God, so long ago. You did stuff with Brooklyn Tweed for a while.
I did.
And that's, I think, where you and I first connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably
so. And then you did the farm thing or doing the farm thing. What are you doing? Right. What are you doing now?
I've moved back to San Juan Island, which is where I grew up, and stumbled into a sheep farm and actually met Emily after hearing her on Wolful. I think that was my first contact with Emily. But I have some sheep from her flock, so we kind of diversified what breeds we were raising and really got into the fiber thing from a lot of different angles. And spent years buttering up Lydia to process my yarn so that I could do something with it. Because my very first batch, I took my very first batch of yarn up to Salt Spring, where there was a little old mill that was in the process of closing, and their pin drafter was broken. So it's this really fat, funny yarn. Anyway, it was just, it was great to get into farming in a region where the local mill scene was also reviving, and to be able to work with Lydia and figuring out what my fiber wanted to be was just amazing. I'm going to pass this thing over to her.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We've gone through a lot of, some people might not realize to make a yarn that a company or a brand is happy with takes sometimes 6, 12, just trial and error, and just doing a little test and see how customers like it and then tweak it a little bit. It's fun going through that process.
Yeah. And we were talking kind of before we started that, I don't even know what was the first year you started?
We opened in 2014.
Okay. So that was the year that Tolt opened that fall.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know when exactly I went, but I remember there's these cute little skeins of yarn and they were a blend. And I remember I grabbed a few and ended up making a pattern and then went back for more. And it was a different yarn.
It was already,
I
know.
And Anna was always
I can't even tell you what it is because I don't remember. It was like that with Tolt. Every time we did a batch, it was gone. And then I was on to something else. And
was it, I might be able to remember if this rings a bell. It was a Jacob. I don't remember the name, but it was a Jacob wool blend. Is that a marled? Do you remember?
Jacob wool naturally is a tricolor.
Okay. So I think you did that and you marled it and then it was a alpaca wool blend.
And that alpaca wool has continued on. We kept tweaking it and changing it, and it's called aviary now. And we still sell.
I love it.
Yeah.
And where are you located at?
Whidbey Island.
Whidbey Island. That's right. I forgot. I'm excited to talk more. Okay, let's pass it to you. Okay, Jessica, we've met. I don't remember exactly when, but we've crossed paths many times. Tell me about you. What's going on with you?
So I am one half of Skagit Woolen Works. We're a brand new woolen processing mill in the Skagit Valley. My business partner, Anna, and I procured a 100-year-old industrial carter.
Okay.
We lovingly named her Rosie.
Okay.
She's the heart of the mill. It's a big piece of machinery. It's meant for basically moving a lot of wool through. But we are on a very tiny scale. Kind of, I guess you'd call us a cottage mill, even though we're not spinning. So we're just producing up to roving. But we saw a huge need in the area, talking to farmers like Emily and Sarah, and talking to Lydia of there's a lot of wool in the world that can't be yarn. What are we going to do with it? So one of our goals is to be zero waste and to put that wool into other useful products. as a value added product for farmers. So wool dryer balls, batting for quilters, stuffing for pillows. The newest thing we're doing is wool pellets, and
Okay.
these are for your garden or your potted
Okay.
plants. And
Yep.
it's a total waste product. I'm sure you could ask Sarah about how the pile, and Emily, of the piles of wool you accumulate during the skirting process. And we take all of that and turn it into pellets and put it back into the soil and put it back to use.
That's
So
amazing.
we're brand new. We're still finding our way.
So I'm going to ask some questions and you guys can decide who you want to pass the mic to. I want to hear about how this collective started. I want to hear kind of the story, a little bit about that.
Relied on each other in different ways and gotten to know each other in different ways. And I think just you guys getting your Carter was kind of a pivotal moment for us to realize like how powerful we are as a group, because the process of turning a raw fleece into a beautiful, especially if it's dyed knitting yarn, is so overwhelming. And for one small business to take that on as a cottage mill or farm or whatever is incredibly overwhelming. And if you ask around the country, even the world, you'll hear the same story, that it's just people are burned out, and it's, you know, you're spread so thin. And having you guys show up in a way that you can do this thing and I can do this thing and we can share our resources has taken such a load off, and really feels like this has been here all along and we're just able to do it in this way right now. And
That's great.
it feels good to me. I mean, you know,
So is the dynamic, instead of you carding and doing, or even just spinning, did you have a carder?
I have a Carter.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like that's like, yeah, there's a lot of heavy lifting.
I have the whole thing scour to yarn, and Jess and Anna at Skagit Woolen scour and pick and card and
Okay.
dye and other things too, as she mentioned. And so she's able to take on jobs that I would turn away because I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time to do it. And if it needs pin drafting or spinning, then I can offer her
That's
those
great.
services instead of interfacing with all the
Yeah.
different customers.
Kind of like force multiplying
Yeah.
with your guys' efforts.
So we were able to work together to do a project where Lydia was like, hey, this is a big project for Sarah. It's a ton of fiber. I've got it picked. Can you just card it for me? Yeah, great. Send it on up. It gets it done that much faster, and it gets it done in a more efficient way. And so
And the people doing the work get paid for the work that they do,
Yeah.
and we all benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's take it back to the production side here. And why don't you share a little bit about kind of your role, both of your role, like in this kind of collective, and like what it's been for you.
Yeah, so I guess say more focused on the farm end, mostly growing sheep and trying to spread the sheep out among people.
You had fin sheep, I think, back in the day. Is that what you still
do,
have?
yeah.
Okay.
So
I can't believe I remembered that.
I
But
know, yeah, some of the like same sheep that we probably talked
Okay.
about still kicking. So
that's awesome.
Being a sheep farmer is a pretty tough gig, and there are an awful lot of hurdles, and everything has gotten really, really, really expensive.
Yeah.
It is a tough way to make a living, and a lot of farmers have moved away from doing wool sheep at all because they can't ever make back what it costs to shear them in selling into the commercial market. And that's what's happened to the wool from my island for a long, long time, is it's just gone into the commercial wool pool. And if you get like 30 cents a pound, like you're doing really well. So for me, I wanted to find a way to not just have my own farm yarn to sell, but to actually be able to buy fleeces from my neighbors at a fair price that actually makes it a little more worth their while to try to keep up their wool quality. And having a relationship with Jess and Anna and with Lydia has made that possible in a way that would have been awfully difficult otherwise.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that we can make yarn in our local Fibershed. Nobody's farther than like 50 miles apart. Like I can load up my farm truck with my big super sacks of fleece and drive it to Jess's or down to Lydia's and load it up with hay on the way back. And like, it feels so much more sustainable to do it this way than to be shipping it across the country to the wool mills back east or anything like that. And the the quality of service that we get from these ladies is incredible. I mean, so many farms, like they send out their clip and they get back whatever they get back. There's no dialogue. There's no ability to kind of customize and be like, actually, I'd really like this. They're like, do you want 2 plies or 3?
If you send it out, you don't know when you might get it back too. And
Yeah.
and just to add to what you're saying about a comment on being local to each other. I mean, we're all aware of how local benefits economy and relationships, but we're in each other's paths on, like, I would say like a 6 to 8 week cycle. And so it really is, I'm going past your place. Can I drop some stuff off? I'm going to be here. Can I leave this for you to pick up at so-and-so's place? And
It's really a community. It's a different aspect of community
Very
within
different.
within the industry.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm just listening to you guys. It's, I have a farm and we had a lot of sheep for a number of years and not anymore, but that, I think what you guys are doing was something that I was missing there. It's like to do that all by yourself and like also kind of remote. It's incredibly
So
difficult.
overwhelming.
And so what you guys have kind of happened upon here is pretty awesome.
I think that's why we got started and we saw that need for people like Sarah and Emily and the other small family farms that were either scaling back or just getting rid of their sheep farms altogether. It's such a wonderful, if you're doing regenerative agriculture, then sheep are a wonderful addition. But if you can't do something with that wool and it becomes more of a burden and you're losing money on them, that's a net negative. And we wanted to give that wool a purpose and a use back and honestly, help them keep making and keep being financially viable.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, over the years, just talking to so many different farmers and stuff, wool is often the byproduct. And so I think that there's been so much movement in ways to not make that always the case, but typically with much larger flocks, like, all the Montana, like, ranchers and stuff like that. But for the smaller people, like, I mean, there's like a direct line to like, livelihood and these kinds of things, or even just like, if it's a hobby, like if it's worth your time, and ending up with like, not me, yes, me, like storage unit of just wool that you don't have time to process or whatever it is, like that's a huge loss, And so it sounds like you guys are kind of solving that in almost like a circular type way.
Maybe we're on a path to figuring something else
Yeah.
out that might work.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel
You're testing right now. This is your experimental phase.
because I guess how it's working, it feels good. So this feels like a good direction.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the future. I mean, with something like this, do you feel like you guys have a sort of kind of enterprise or business idea of like, do you guys talk about like what maybe you want to do in the future? Or do you feel like it's just very organic and you're not really necessarily having those kinds of conversations?
I think it's both. I think when we started out, we had an idea of what we thought our business was going to be. And Lydia quickly said, you can do that, but try this too. And she was absolutely right. And from the very beginning, I think all have thought of, wouldn't it be great if we had a local scouring facility that was on a more massive scale? Or what if we get a situation where we all can kind of pool our wool together and sell it somewhere and then get products back? Let's collaborate. Like it felt good to just say, let's sit down and see what we can do together. I think after the pandemic, ideally it was just primed for everyone to come, rather than kind of just put your head down and go to work, open up and say, how can we support each other? How can we work together?
I would agree with that and add that people that I tried collaborating with, several years ago felt that competitive, like, no, I'm not sure if you're going to try to take advantage of my business or whatever. And that's a normal feeling as a business owner, to be protective of your work and whatnot. Nothing wrong with that. But after pandemic, the attitude, I agree, is more like, well, what can we do together?
Yeah.
And who can we trust and rely on? And
I love that.
so
Because I know what you're talking about. Like I kind of witnessed it firsthand for a lot of years, just all the people I was talking to, like, competitive, but also like people just want to find their place. And-
you're looking for an edge.
Yeah.
You're always, even still, I'm looking for what makes my business unique
Yeah.
and how can I do the best that I can do. And I was going to say, to add to the question about what's in store for the future, in order for us to collaborate, we have to be able to stand on our own as independent, strong businesses. And so whatever ideas we come up with or brainstorms we think about, step one is I have to be independent. I have to be able to make decisions for my business in a profitable way. And as a business, that's sustainable. And as a community, it's sustainable if we're moving the wool that's been going to waste.
Yeah.
And it's sustainable for a farm if it doesn't cost an arm and a leg just to move it, or that even better, you can make a profit on it. And so these are all variables, and we all come to the table with different need. And in order to collaborate, we have to see each other as independent, unique sets of needs.
Yeah,
And how can we respect that and
Yeah.
work with it
I love it.
instead of melting it down into compromise, a diluted compromise, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So this is the first year of Flock. And this is kind of a big deal for this area. We've never had anything like this before in this capacity.
I remember it was over 5 years ago, it was in Seattle, and then there hasn't been a hometown show, I guess, since. And so, and not even one during the summer where people want to be outside. So yeah, it's, I guess I'm still surprised how many people are here, but it is really wonderful to see so much interest.
I think when Emily and I first heard about this, we were like, oh, a little yarn festival. It's right in the backyard. Oh, we could do that. Why not? We'll give it a try. Will anyone actually want to touch wool in August? I don't know. And then it turned into this huge thing, and there's people here from all over the world, and that feels super wild. And then the conversation was okay, well, we're just going to be representing the small farm yarn scene and bringing a little of that vibe here. But it's great to be here and out in the community, and we always have a good time seeing each other. And I think the independent business part is necessary because we live in capitalism, absolutely. But I think anybody who's a farmer or a fiber world person would tell you the community is the point. The relationships are what make it sustainable on a personal level and make us feel like we want to keep going when it's hard. And so it's amazing to be here with people that are so important to us. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, we have a question, and is there much of a direct to consumer market, or is it all to dyers or commercial groups?
Oh, definitely there's a direct to consumer market, but it is hard work to get yourself there.
Yeah.
It's so hard. There's no substitute for that hard work, but the market is there. I think you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We were expected to be direct to consumer from the get-go, and then quickly realized if we just focused on custom processing, I'd have to charge so much that Sarah and Emily couldn't afford to have it done, and it wouldn't turn into a product that anyone could afford. Okay, quick. What else can we do? Make some things that people would like to buy and get that word out about other wool products in the world. So yeah, it's a lot more work, no lie. Doing direct to consumer, doing these shows, tons of work, tons of fun.
Yeah.
It's great to get the word out, but at the same time, it's a lot more, resource heavy, I guess you might say.
Yeah, I guess especially maybe products that we offer require a lot more education to the consumer. And so it's helpful to have these face-to-face events to really express that. I also interface the public at the farmers market every week, which is also kind of similar. Why do things cost differently than they do in the store? And why aren't there tomatoes in December? So all of that. But I think it's part of your job, I guess, as especially a smaller scale producer, to do some of that education.
Yeah. What are you most excited about in the future for your guys' collective? Is there any very specific thing that one of you guys are experimenting with together or individually?
So one thing that Sarah and I have talked about a lot is wool sponges, which have been around for a little while. And we're both really excited to pursue some more, again, kind of going down that zero waste path. There's a lot of her wool that can be made into beautiful yarn, but there's a lot that something else needs to be done with it. And we both kind of hit upon this. We love using wool sponges. Could we make a locally produced wool sponge? So things like that. The other thing I'm excited about is just the fact that I now have a team of wool ambassadors around me. It feels like sometimes you're just shouting into the void, and like you have, like Emily was saying, the level of education you have to do to get people to understand the benefits of wool products. But we're all touting the same thing. So having that around us, I think, is hopefully helps us succeed and do more.
I'm really excited for Jess and Anna to start making wool comforters because they're amazing. But I think just when we look around at the breeds of sheep that do well in the Pacific Northwest, not all of them are going to be next to skin soft, fine wool yarns. They're just not. That's not who does well out here. So keeping that kind of regional sense of who we are as farmers and as wool producers, you really need a system like this where you have mills that understand what you're growing and what it wants to be. And you need non-yarn options because wool is many, many things. And it's really fun to be able to show those differences to hand knitters and be like, yeah, it's not all merino, but feel this and now feel that. And that kind of thing is great. But also just having a variety of wool products, because it's like the most amazing sustainable fiber on the planet and everybody should be using it in their daily lives. And these ladies are making that possible. So yeah,
That's cool.
That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
love that. Yeah, I have a wool bed and wool comforter, wool everything, and it lasts forever. Thank you so much for coming, guys. This is great. I'm really glad that you guys are here. Thanks, everyone.